You're listening to the Final Say Radio Show, a Rappaport Media production, with your host Brett Rappaport and co-host John Rappaport.
I want to welcome our next guest, and she's someone that I've had the pleasure to meet and spend some time with. I want to welcome Rosey Morrisroe, who is an educator. She's a child advocate and founder of the Soldiers Against Child Abuse, a national nonprofit organization which is dedicated to raising child abuse awareness nationwide. She herself is a survivor of sexual child abuse, which began at age 4, and she chairs many seminars at school districts and town hall meetings, and which encourage parents and students of all grades to freely speak about the abuse and the things they've gone through. And Morrisroe is also a first-grade teacher, and I think that's just absolutely fabulous that all these things that you do and the fact that you're a teacher. And Rose, again, it's great to have you on the program with Brett and John, and I appreciate you joining us to tell your story, and I'm sorry for all that you've gone through, but I think you're a hero for what you do now. You are, and you're an inspiration, and I want to thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's so nice to speak with you again.
It is. And so just to lighten us up just quickly, because I'm looking at your, and I apologize, my son is in studio today, my newborn. And I did that for a reason. He was sleeping. I thought it'd be better to behave today. But because this show is about our children. And so we have to remind ourselves of that. But I'm looking at the cover of your book, No Secrets Between Us. And I like the fact that it's like an illustration. It's not just like a real picture. It's a drawing, and it looks like, any drawing that any of us have done in our lifetime when you got out the crayons and the color pencils and whatnot, and you're drawing something that is so real. And this is a little girl on the cover. And so I want you to tell your story or what you go about doing, the things that we need to hear. And I'd like you to just take the stage, because you are the expert on discussing this issue, and we are here to learn and to help support what you guys are doing.
Absolutely. Thank you again. And I agree with you. The cover that my book, as you mentioned, is titled No Secrets Between Us. And believe it or not, the illustrator to my book was the illustrator of The Muppets. And I thought it's really important because his name is Matt Anding of the audience. And the audience is kindergarten through 3rd grade. As you mentioned, I was sexually abused at the age of 4 by a family member. And I told my story right away to my mother, but nothing got done. Very little was done about that, especially back in that day where to speak about child sexual abuse was taboo. You just never mentioned that. Well, it was going on for many years for a lot of friends of mine even, not the same abuser, but a different abuser. And I just remember thinking when the abuse was happening that I was alone and by myself. And really that's not the case. Unfortunately, I'm going to give you some statistics. 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 7 boys will be sexually violated by the time they're 18 years of age in this country. It's staggering. And in 13 seconds, another child will be abused in the United States.
Could you get that? I'm sorry. Yes. Could you repeat that statistic one more time? Because we need to hear that a second time.
In 13 seconds, another child will be abused in the United States of America. And my statistics should offer the resources are provided by the FBI. They're also provided by the American Psychological Association. So these aren't statistics that we took out of a hat. There are 60 million survivors in America. Could you imagine that we know of? We have to also realize so many of my survivors out there aren't even telling their secrets because they're sworn to secrecy, unfortunately, or they're ashamed, even though they, the victim, survivor, have done nothing wrong. So there are 60 million of us in the United States. It's not another country epidemic. It's a United States epidemic.
That's just shocking, actually, when I hear you just talking about the numbers. And when you say 60 million people, you're talking about a country that has, I don't know, anywhere from 310 to 330 million people, if you include the ones that are supposed to be here or not.
Right,
but
right.
60 million, that is such an incomprehensible number. Yeah. And it just really shows you how large of an issue this is. And it's almost an issue that, when do you ever really hear this being discussed in the media, or like you're doing, trying to get into the schools and community events and things like that to bring the awareness? There are not enough Rosies out there.
Oh, no. Again, thank you. I'm humbled. I really am. I wanted to throw out a couple other statistics because I really believe once, like you said, it's staggering. Once you hear it, you realize just how serious an issue it is. 93% of the time, the child knows the abuser. We focus in our school districts, and a lot of our programs focus on stranger danger. Do you know that's only 7% of the time? And that is where our money is being funneled. We need to focus on the 93%. And a lot of the time, in my situation, it's a family member. And if you do tell, nothing is really being done about it because, as I was told, it's a family secret. That's why I titled my book, No Secrets Between Us, because our children have to learn at the primary grade, as young as kindergarten, what a safe and unsafe touch is, who's a trusted adult, what is grooming, what to do if they're in an unsafe situation. As part of my curriculum, the stop, step, and tell. If the child's in a situation where they're being abused, stop, step away, and tell right away. That is the only, if we have to start teaching our children in the schools that where they can go to. Be honest, I have to tell you, had I been educated when I was younger, again, I told my mother, but if I had known at a young age that I could go to my teacher, a principal, a school counselor, I think things would have been different for me. And with so many, I'm the first grade teacher, with so many of our children, and it's our children, this is not a regional issue. So many people think, oh, this is not happening in my backyard. I assure you it is. In every backyard, inner city, suburban areas, and rural areas. And when we teach our children, through education, we are empowering them. What better way to know that our children will be safe is than to empower them? We teach on bullying, character development, proper hygiene, and nothing on child abuse, or very little.
When it comes to the issue of sex, it seems that they're willing to teach some pretty extreme things in school, but this is the most important thing that they could be teaching. And I think you're right. It's not covered. It's not covered enough. And
I will tell you, Ray, it's not scary. As you know, I go around to different school districts because I know a lot of time the parents are like, I want to teach my child on awareness. Well, that's not happening a lot of the time. But let's say it doesn't have to be scary. It really doesn't. I teach for my seminars. I teach seminars for children and adults. So for my seminars for the children, I'm teaching them personal space and that they own it, that they own their body. I don't go into great detail. Or it's so simple. Simon Says. We even play games. Simon Says we dance to certain songs, like really cute themes. I don't want to give away my entire formula, but we could really teach our children in a child-friendly and age-appropriate way. And that's what my curriculum and book is all about.
Well, I think it's so important, first, that you put it together as a curriculum. Second, that you also identify two things that I think are profoundly important. One is that it's so often somebody that you're aware of. I'll disclose right here on the show that I'm actually a victim myself, one of those 60-some-odd million. I don't even remember the incident because I was too young. But it was a babysitter. I'm not even sure whether I was 3 or 4 maybe. So, but I know so many people that this happened to as well at all kinds of different ages, many times in family, And I think there's a couple of things that are a problem. I would argue that virtually every one of us is a victim in one way or another, because if it happens to your daughter, to your girlfriend, to your mother, to your wife, etc., the emotional scars are never born alone by an individual. They are always shared. The child who acts out as a teenager, or God forbid, hangs themselves or turns to crime or uses their body in inappropriate ways, as you know, oftentimes, it leads to additional predation by the victim or to a level of sexual promiscuity, which somehow manifests itself due to a lack of self-respect. That the nature is that everybody becomes a victim. And I think the ultimate thing here, you're providing tools, but it's also the fact that the sad irony that the one person who should feel the shame so often gets away with it, and the people who bear the burden of shame in many cases through their entire lives are the victims. There is no shame in being a victim, whether it's gun violence, spousal abuse, alcohol. It doesn't matter what it is, with the possible exception of the fact that when it is sexual predation, particularly on children, it seems like something that most people don't heal. And I will second something Brett said to you earlier. I think you are absolutely a true hero, because the glass ceiling or glass walls, if you will, of shame that force so many people to suffer in silence is something people need. They need people to help break that wall down for them. Most people apparently do not have the strength you have to break that glass themselves, so you're to be commended for that.
Thank you. I don't feel I deserve that, but thank you. I really, really appreciate it. Sometimes when I'm out there, trying to raise awareness, I feel alone. I'm like, geez, I just wish someone would listen. But I really believe, this is John I'm speaking with, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. I really believe, John, people are starting to open their eyes to this, especially after Jerry Sandusky. The trial of Jerry Sandusky really opened the eyes of many parents. And I keep praying that my awareness curriculum it is my calling in life. And when I see our most innocent citizens who are children, they need to be protected, and we are their voice. This is what I say all the time, John. Give the voice to the voiceless and protect the most innocent citizens, and they are our children. And like you're saying, we've lived in shame. I have friends who still will not come forward. I know who they are because, they kind of throw hints to me, but they still live with that blame and shame, and they've done nothing wrong.
Well, you mentioned that you did not have the broader support, and I think that is a very common problem as well. Even today, I still think it happens. People are so afraid of how this will throw a wave through the family, but the reality is it's the act itself that already created that problem in the family, and in almost every case, recidivism in something like this is so high, even after those who've served time in jail, that it's almost a guarantee if you don't stop it or do something about it, not only would that 4-year-old become an abused 7-year-old, become an abused 11-year-old, and perhaps never really heal from, in their own human sexuality, but you're almost guaranteeing that it'll be other victims too. It's kind of like not prosecuting people for rape. They're both crimes of extreme violence because they both have such a terribly profound emotional component. And I, for one, believe that, and I'm glad, Bill O'Reilly had been is one of the things that attracted to me early on his show, because Bill O'Reilly was merciless at going after people to say, how can you fight Jessica's law? I mean, if ever there's a law, right, that you cannot argue, we have to protect our kids first, and I don't care who takes the fall. If people are guilty, lock them up, throw away the key. It's all about protecting the kids.
I'm glad you mentioned Bill O'Reilly, because I consider him, he and Nancy Grace, Oprah Winfrey. I always say this is not a partisan issue. Whether you're Democratic or Republican or Independent, this is not one side issue. This is an American issue, and it's our children. And like I mentioned, Bill O'Reilly, Oprah, and Nancy Grace, they really have put into the forefront what is going on in this country. And it's very interesting that I think, if I'm not mistaken, Bill O'Reilly has my book, because I ran into Jesse Waters and I've given my book. And I really hope that he will reach out to me, because I would love for everybody to learn about No Secrets Between Us. And there's one other thing I wanted to mention. You were mentioning Jessica's Law. New Jersey, we're proud. About 2 weeks ago, Jessica's Law was signed by the governor.
Which is fabulous, but the last governor, shame on him, right? It was, they did everything they can, it seemed, to fight it. I just want to say, before I hand the microphone back to Brett, Rosey, that it is, if there's one thing, and I haven't been to one of your lectures yet, I'd love to attend one. I understand they're mostly geared for children, but if there's one thing that I think is an important part of this, which is to tell when you take that 60 million number, is we are essentially part of, if you collectively take 60 million or 60, maybe it's more than that even, but if you collectively take all of those, this is a fan club nobody necessarily wants to be a member of, but it's such a big group. How can there be a shame? It's like, this is not like, men who admit they like Barry Manilow, right? This is like such a profoundly large and important group that people really need to get out of the idea of being ashamed of being a member of the group, because it's not a card that you sent away for in the mail. It's something that was perpetrated upon you. But when you realize how vast the numbers are, standing together, boy, this group can make an enormous difference in affecting change simply by virtue of raising voice, raising awareness, supporting people like you who are providing the tools for change, especially directly to the children, and maybe most importantly, hiring, meaning voting for elected officials who seem to understand protecting our children is a national and should be a national priority, and getting rid of the expletive folks who do not seem to think this is a priority for Americans.
It's definitely priority number one for me. And I will mention something, John. I do hold seminars also at Seton Hall University. I'm very, very proud of Seton Hall University. They're one of the first colleges that would open their doors to me. And I trust you and me, I have knocked on many doors, because what I do is, for this adult seminar, for all the new educators, the new students, rather, who are majoring in education, psychology, nursing, they should know the signs of abuse, especially as educators. We are their first line of defense. And we should know if one of our students is being abused by certain signs and symptoms, and be really keen to that. And then if I think or surmise one of my students being abused, I immediately make sure I address that with our school counselor. And with the statistics being 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 7 boys, think about that. Think about how many students each classroom has. What is the average, 20 to 22 students? I assure you, it is such a necessary seminar for both the children and adults. And there's nothing more important in my eyes, on my agenda, than raising awareness for our children.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I just want to touch on a couple things that you mentioned, and one additional thing, and then we're running short on time. But you mentioned that it's, not a partisan issue.
No.
And you're absolutely correct. And I think for anyone to ever contemplate bringing politics into an issue like this is just completely out of bounds and off the wall. So I just want to say that, because all of us equally should have the compassion to want to protect our children and prevent this kind of thing from ever happening. Now, that being said, as a society, I just want to point out two things, because I think with rape, I think there are a lot of rapes that go unreported, but also the majority of them go unprosecuted. And then you have circumstances where you may have not necessarily rape or sexual abuse, but you have sexual issues in the workplace where someone of power may abuse in any kind of way someone subordinate to them. And often what you see is a case where, they're paid off to go away. And all these particular things send a message to the people that do it that in America it's okay, because most of the time you will get away with it. And I stand with you, Rosey, 100% in saying that we can't tolerate this at all, not 1%.
No.
And that we need to educate. And the fact that you're not only a wonderful teacher here in New Jersey, but you are the right person and we are with you.
Thank you. I greatly appreciate that. Truly, it means so much. It really does. And thank you for sharing your story.
Well, that was John. That was John's story. This is Brett.
Okay,
but,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It's hard. Hey, two brothers sound alike.
Exactly.
But, anyway,
so if anybody... Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was going to ask you, please tell us where everyone can find a copy of your book and how we may support your organization.
Absolutely. At nosecretsbetweenus.com. You can purchase the book there, or if you want, you could even email me. It's under Contact Us. If there is a principal or a superintendent who would love to learn about my curriculum, it's just so essential. I help all the parents who are listening write to your principal, write to your superintendent, and say that we have got to put child sexual abuse awareness on the forefront like we do bullying and other programs. Please.
Great. Rosey Morrisroe, thank you so much for joining us here on the Final Say Radio Show. You're a close friend, and we stand with you, and we always welcome you on our program, so please feel free to come on anytime you ever need.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for everything, and I'll talk to you guys soon. I'm so excited.
Okay. Take care. Have a wonderful afternoon, Rosey. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.